I'm a low life, but now people call me the king. Tearing it up with every lyric that I bring to the table. Because I'm willing and able. I'm in more homes than Comcast cable. I got the skill that'll rattle your brain. I'm a threat like Saddam Hussein. Everybody know my name. Joe Habib's a top soldier. Kid, they should have told you. You really need to pack a lunch. My words hit hard just like a Tyson punch. So give me a chance. I bet you I can make you dance. Show me your girl. I bet you I get in her pants. I'm breaking egos and money is what I'm stacking. Joe Habib on the mic. You know I'm down for action. Shout out to Make Beats Sir and the Beat Smith and the whole Rope a Dope radio crew. Yeah. All right, good morning, everybody. What's going on? I just finished watching a great interview, and I left a link in the description box to Boxing King Media. And they interviewed Tyson Fury's manager, and his name's Spencer Brown. And they went in depth about the whole situation with Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury and the fight that's already been agreed to. We don't have a date. We don't have a date yet for the fight between Fury and Usyk, but they talked about that. And Boxing Key Media was asking Spencer Brown questions about how the whole Fury Usyk thing came about, and if it was hard to make, if it was, just the whole process and how this whole thing was put together. And I found it quite fascinating. I found it quite interesting listening to Spencer Brown. And if you remember, I don't know if people saw this interview that Spencer Brown did with the fight with Teddy Atlas, when they had Teddy Atlas and Ken Rideout talking to Spencer Brown. And he pretty much let the cat out the bag a couple weeks before Tyson Fury versus Usyk was officially announced, and he said it was an announcement was coming soon, and he said it would be a Christmas present, right? So, as everyone knows, the fight was announced, right? And however you want to frame it, some people's, that are in the MMA world, I think Michael Bisping mentioned this and said it, that it was quite disrespectful for them to announce a fight between Tyson Fury and Usyk before this Francis Ngannou fight took place. And I understand the argument, and I want to be very careful here because I don't want to sound disrespectful either, because I do admire Francis Ngannou a lot. If anyone knows Francis Ngannou's story, of course, it's hard to not admire and respect this guy, right? But something that I've suspected all along, shortly thereafter that Usyk fight was announced, and it was rumored that it could potentially take place on December 23rd. I know a lot of people were saying, well, why would they do that? It would be such a quick turnaround, right? So my argument to that is, well, in my opinion, this is what I believed about maybe a month ago, and this is what I believe now when I started hearing the rumors of Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk on December 23rd, even after the fight was announced, but it didn't have the date. I said to myself, you know what? Maybe Tyson Fury is training for Francis Ngannou and Oleksandr Usyk at the same time simultaneously, right? So he's basically doing a camp for both. And I want to be very careful. I don't want to sound too disrespectful here to Francis Ngannou, but I'm watching Francis Ngannou train, and I'm just seeing all the footage, and I'm just saying to myself that there's just no way in hell this fight is remotely dangerous or can be competitive. It's just my opinion. I think they know that, and I think maybe even deep down inside, Francis Ngannou possibly may know that he can't win this fight, but his goal is to, do the best he can, right, and make a good account of himself. And obviously, if you are in the camp of, well, by this fight being announced, this is disrespectful to Francis Ngannou. Well, again, he's getting paid a lot of money to be disrespected. So I think that will console him a bit here, right? The amount of money he's making for this fight is insane. It's off the charts, right? So let's get back to this interview with Boxing King Media and Spencer Brown. because Boxing King Media asked Spencer Brown. So we're hearing about this December 23rd date. Is this just a rumor? Is it is it going to happen? And he said that's the date that they're targeting, barring no injuries from Tyson Fury, no cuts, no niggles, whatever. They're planning to go full steam ahead with December 23rd, and that's literally 8 weeks after October 28th, which is going to be the next Saturday, right? People will say, how can they have such a quick turnaround? Again, going back to my original point, they talked about bringing, Jai Apataya was being interviewed, and there was a rumor that he was contacted by Tyson Fury to be brought in as a sparring partner. I don't know if he's there yet, or if he's making plans to come in shortly thereafter the fight on October 28th. But Tyson Fury, like, why would he already be bringing or planning to be bringing in a guy like Jai Apataya, who's a southpaw, who's pretty much the same size as Oleksandr Usyk? And I've said this, and you can disagree or agree with this. I think he has a very similar style to Oleksandr Usyk. How he goes in and out. He's kind of an ambush guy, mid-range guy, right? I would even argue there's maybe a few more wrinkles that Jai Apataya possesses that Usyk doesn't. But again, that's all debatable. But to me, he's a very similar fighter in terms of style, stature, and obviously he's a southpaw as well. So to me, like, this was all in the works, right? This was all in the works. So once again, you can say, well, this is just hyperbole. You can say this is just you could basically say that, if you want to, that they're just doing this to kind of try to promote the 28th fight on the 28th. That's the argument here, and I understand that. But this guy Spencer Brown's been pretty much on the money. Like, when people were saying, "Oh yeah, he's just saying that the fight with the Usyk's not going to happen." As soon as he said that people are going to be getting a Christmas present pretty soon, literally like a week and a half, 2 weeks later, that fight was announced with Usyk. So now he's saying that this fight is targeted for the 23rd. So don't be surprised if in that ring, after that fight with Ngannou, right, that they do announce this fight on the 23rd with Oleksandr Usyk. I think it's definitely totally possible and plausible that this is going to happen, right? Because the last time this guy Spencer Brown leaked information to the press, he ended up being right. He ended up being right. So I do think that there is a strong possibility that this fight will happen on December 23rd. And the whole notion that these guys weren't working behind the scenes to get this fight done, this whole notion that one guy was ducking the other, this whole notion that one guy was afraid of the other, you had two camps divided, and that's fine. Whatever you believe, you can believe, but because you had that division, you had the two sides working against each other, right? I believe it helped and will help to build the fight and make it even bigger when you have that divide. When you have those types of divides between two fan bases, I think it helps bring the fight together. I think it creates an anticipation. And if Fury is going to be looked upon as the bad guy here, he's the guy who's been avoiding this fight all along. He never wanted it. Whatever, however that gets framed, all it does is it brings people to the table to watch the fight who are going to be personally tuning in to see Fury lose. They want to see the big mouth get his mouth shut, right? And then obviously you have the Fury fans who are going to be like, finally, once Fury gets the opportunity to beat this guy, all his critics are going to get shut up after this, right? So it goes back to my theory when the whole April fight was proposed in Wembley, and people are like, "Oh, that Tyson Fury never really wanted that fight. It was just trolling. That was all bullshit." He basically was putting things together so Usyk would like, he's giving, like, basically putting offers together that Usyk would not accept. quote unquote pricing himself out of the fight with the whole rematch clause thing. But I did post a Facebook post that Fury he took a picture with MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and it was in February. It said big things are coming, right? Then a month later, what happened? The Ngannou fight was announced for October. So I do believe that potentially Fury did want to have that fight in April with Usyk, but the reason why they were arguing over the rematch clause was because that fight with Ngannou was always planned for later in the year. So if he had a rematch, he couldn't have a rematch clause with Usyk because he wouldn't have been able to fight Ngannou in October. The Saudis always wanted, for whatever reason, that fight with Ngannou in October. So I do believe that potentially Fury did want to try to squeeze that Usyk fight in April. And he was very adamant about not having the rematch clause because he wanted to be able to have that fight with Ngannou in October. But now, since the Ngannou fight is gonna happen first, then now there's no problem having a rematch clause because apparently something else that was revealed in this interview with Boxing King Media and Tyson Fury's manager is that there is a rematch clause, and he even said that whether the rematch will have all the belts on the line or not, because I think the IBF will probably strip the winner of that fight, and that title will be vacant, and you could see um, Hergovich versus Wallen for the vacant IBF title. And AJ's ranked number 3, so he could fight the winner, right? So again, I thought this fight was always going to happen. I just didn't 100% know if it was going to be this year or next year. But I did think that the fight was going to happen, and I do think that both people, all parties involved, knew that there was going to be an offer on the table from Saudi, and they were just waiting for Saudi to work out all the details. Because you did see Usyk after the fallout for that April fight at Wembley. What did he do? He signed with Skills Challenge, which was Saudi-based organization, right? Saudi-based crew. But Prince Khalid was pretty much his potential desire, right? His potential goal, right, was I want to do Fury Usyk. This is what the rumor was. I want to do Fury Usyk and Wilder Joshua on the same night. I don't know how true that was, but that was put out there. So originally he was trying to put the deal together, but then Turki Al Sheikh, right, under the instructions of the Crown Prince, right, Bin Solomon, Bin Solomon, right, MBS. They had different ideas, right? They had different ideas. So he was overruled by the Crown Prince that, you know what, we're going to go in a different direction. We're not really concerned about that Wilder Joshua fight. We want to focus on Fury. For whatever reason, I don't. Again, I can only speculate why they did that, why they lost interest, right? Maybe they felt as though Fury was the better investment, right? And they thought that because that fight would be for undisputed, maybe they decided that we want to put all of our resources, or a greater amount of our resources behind this fight instead of having to put those two fights on. So in other words, by not having that fight, there's more money on the table for Usyk and Fury, and presenting an offer that neither side could refuse, it seems. So at the end of the day, people can say what they want, but I believe this was brewing all the way back in February, March, that they were working behind the scenes to get this fight done, right? And we saw Usyk taking a picture with Turki Al Sheikh back, I think, in September, and he said big news is coming. And in this interview, right, Spencer Brown, Tyson Fury's manager, said that Fury actually reached out to Usyk. They had a phone conversation. So this whole thing about, Fury not liking Usyk, Fury not never wanting this fight, again, this is all part of the theatrics. Whether you want to believe it or not, this is all part of the theatrics. I don't think and believe for a second that neither man was concerned or worried about fighting the other. But once again, they knew that if they waited, that Saudi would make them the biggest, best offer possible, and they both made a smart business decision. Now, if you want to sit there and say Fury never wanted this fight, and if the Fury fans want to say, well, Usyk never wanted this, none of that even matters because the reality of the situation has been verified, right? Not only by Spencer Brown, not only by Tyson Fury, not only by Oleksandr Usyk, not only by Turki Al-Sheikh, not only by Bob Arum, right? Not only by Frank Warren, like all these people are confirming and corroborating on the same story that they were working on putting this fight together. So now people who are skeptical, oh, well, there's no date, there's no date. Well, Spencer Brown just gave you a date. And he said that they're pretty likely to have a fight on that date, that date is pretty much legitimate, right? Pending that, again, no one gets injured. And I have to say, I going back to the Francis Ngannou training footage. I just basically, and I want to be respectful here because I do like Francis Ngannou. This is going to be pretty much a sparring session. So essentially, what this is Tyson Fury getting paid to spar with somebody, right? And he's going to be doing it in public and getting paid for it and having people be able to watch it in the arena and on pay-per-view. As far as risk level in this fight, it's essentially zero in my opinion, and I'm trying to say that with the most utmost respect for Francis Ngannou for what he's done in the world of MMA, but I just don't think that there's any danger here. And as I said, Fury does look in shape. I mean, obviously you're not seeing him with his shirt off now, but even in clothes, he looks pretty fit. Face looks kind of thin a little bit, thinned out a little bit. He looks a lot less puffy, should I say, than he did when the fight was first announced at that opening press conference. He did look a little heavy, but he's starting to look a little slimmer. You can tell he's been training, right? And as I said, and I suggested a couple of weeks ago, when I was talking to Eric, I was talking to Maestro, and I was even talking to D-Star about this. I think he's basically training for both of them, both in Ngannou and in. This is essentially a training camp for Usyk, right? This is, to me, I think he is preparing for Usyk because why else would Jai Opetaia have been contacted, right? Again, Jai Opetaia has already confirmed that he's been contacted and he's willing to. And I don't know if he's there yet. I don't know if he's done anything, but it seems as though he's said that he would do it, and he's excited about doing it. So he's either there or he's preparing to go there shortly thereafter this fight with Ngannou. So you can be skeptical if you want, and that's fine. That's fine. I mean, people go back and they want to talk about things Fury's done 10, 15 years ago. Well, that's fine. But again, Spencer Brown, everything this guy's been saying has been pretty much accurate. Told you that we're going to get a Christmas present on the fight with Teddy Atlas, and like a week and a half, 2 weeks later, the fight with Usyk was announced. Now he's telling you that 23rd date is pretty much the goal, right? So don't be surprised next week after that fight with Ngannou, right? That December 23rd gets announced as the date. Don't be surprised about that. And don't be surprised if Oleksandr Usyk he's not training and preparing for Fury right now, or even at least having a pre-camp, right? Because after October 28th, there's only 8 weeks to go to December 23rd. And you can argue, well, that's too quick of a turnaround for Fury. But again, this is not going to be physically taxing, in my opinion. This is, again, this fight with Ngannou, to me, is essentially going to be a sparring session for Fury. And again, I emphasize, with all due respect to Francis Ngannou, I just don't think this fight's going to be competitive. And I did think before that maybe Fury will carry this guy, maybe. But I would not be surprised if Fury goes in there and just blows him out in maybe 2 rounds. He may kind of carry him the first round. Yes, you're unblocked, Larry Merchant. Don't start crying. I unblocked you. I unblocked you, so don't start crying. You wouldn't be able to be here if you weren't unblocked. You wouldn't be able to come in the chat. I don't think, anyways. But you are unblocked. So yeah. So this whole thing, and we can keep going back and forth about it. We can keep going around and around and around about who ducked who didn't want to fight who. But you know, and then you hear Eddie Hearn saying, "Well, Tyson Fury never wanted this fight," and all this bullshit. But at the end of the day, actions speak louder than words. And Tyson Fury is going to be fighting Oleksandr Usyk, right? But Anthony Joshua is not going to be fighting Deontay Wilder. Now they're talking about a fight with Manuel Char. I don't know. So who's really going for legacy here? Eddie Hearn's questioning if Tyson Fury's going for legacy, right? By beating Andy Ruiz and an old Vladimir Klitschko. I don't know. I mean, again, you can make the argument. It's very possible that if Anthony Joshua goes through his career, right, without fighting Wilder or Fury, it's going to be a big question mark. So, it is what it is. A lot of you guys are wrong. A lot of you guys are wrong. Thought this fight would never happen. You thought Tyson Fury didn't want it. But it's happening. It's happening. And it is very likely that you could get an early Christmas present, December 23rd. Could get an early Christmas present. And they could be fought in the same arena that was built for this Ngannou fight next week. Then I was hearing Spencer Brown talk about how all these people, like Saudi is sparing no expense. Larry Holmes is getting flown in. I think he said Mike Tyson's already going to be there. Marco Antonio Barrera. He was just going down the list of like fighters. Who else did he say was going to be there? I think Lennox Lewis may be there. I think Evander Holyfield's going to go. They're flying in all these. Ronaldo's going to get flown in. All these guys are going to be there. Like they're really, really sparing no expense for this fight, man. So to sit here and think that these guys are playing around, right? I don't question them anymore, man. I was highly skeptical about Saudi, but when they want to do something and they get behind somebody or something, right? It is what it is. Yeah. Again, I mean, it doesn't matter what you believe. It matters what happens. This guy, Spencer Brown, When he was on the fight with Teddy Atlas, everyone was saying he was full of shit. And then shortly thereafter, Usyk confirmed what he said. Bob Arum confirmed what he said. Uh, Alex Krejcik confirmed what he said. Right? Yeah, yeah. You can assume that he's already started camp because think about it. Think about it. He said he doesn't. And again, that interview was misinterpreted too. It was misinterpreted. He basically said usually he likes 14 weeks to prepare, right? But he never said that he needs 14 weeks to prepare for this fight. Again, he could have been he could be training. When you look at what these guys do, they have what's called pre-camps where they may not bring sparring partners in, right? They may be doing conditioning, but to sit there and think that Usyk's not training right now, I seriously doubt that he's not training right now. So I'll tell you this for all the skeptics. I'll tell you this. If Saudi Arabia says this is the date, here's the money, these guys are going to fight on that date, barring an injury or an unforeseen catastrophe or crisis. If they say this is happening on the 23rd, show up, be there or be square, both of these guys will be there on the 23rd. Right? Both of these guys will be there on the 23rd. And if it gets announced next week on the 23rd, which, given this guy's track record, Fury's manager, right, Spencer Brown, if it gets announced on the 23rd, then what can you say? What can you say? I posted a link to the interview in the chat with Boxing King Media and Spencer Brown. He went over everything. It's up to you to believe what you want to believe. But this guy's got a good track record. He's been right about everything he's been saying. There's no motivation really for him to lie if the other side is confirming everything he's saying. Right? So this whole notion about Fury being difficult to deal with, I don't know. This fight got put together rather easily. I mean, what were they talking about this fight for about a year and a half, and then a year and a half later it happens. I mean, we've been talking about Wilder versus Joshua since like 2018, and we still haven't got that. We were talking about Joshua versus Fury since 2019. We still haven't gotten that. So this notion that Fury is so difficult to deal with, I mean, he's going to be fighting Usyk, and he's already fought Wilder, and he fought Klitschko. When Klitschko was still the man, right? Took a very small portion of the purse. Fight. He did everything that was asked of him, right? He was the clear B side in that situation. I don't know. Is this guy really that hard to deal with? And I will concede that yeah, he's inconsistent. He does take long layoffs in between fights. We're not going to argue that. Early in his career, has he pulled out of fights? Yeah, for various reasons, right? But I can only judge the guy on what he's been doing recently. And recently, none of these guys in the heavyweight division have really fought each other. So you can claim you can blame Wilder, you can blame Fury, and to some degree, if you want to blame Joshua, oh, he's been active. Okay, but is he really fighting fights that you're excited about? Is anyone going to be excited about Anthony Joshua versus Manuel Char in December? And now they're even talking about that fight being on an undercard. So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. If there's no chance that this fight with Fury and Usyk happens on December 23rd, then why hasn't Hearn announced Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. yet? Why hasn't he announced that fight yet? I'll tell you why. Number one, I don't think that fight happens this year. He's promising it, almost basically confirming and promising that that fight's going to happen this year. I don't think so. And if they were so sure that the Fury fight wasn't going to happen on December 23rd, which now he's kind of saying that maybe it will, right? That Conor Ben, Chris Eubank Jr. fight would have been announced by now. It would have been announced by now if there was no concern about that date possibly being taken up by Usyk versus Fury. So, in my opinion, I do believe that there is a high probability that this fight will get announced next week, and we will see it on December 23rd. That's just my opinion. Right? That's just my opinion. So we'll see. But I'm going to be honest. I'm biased. I'm the president of the Fury Maniacs. Everybody knows that. I love Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury right now is my favorite fighter in the sport. I think Tyson Fury, based off of what I've seen in terms of his skills and ability, giving him the eye test, which isn't very credible in a lot of people's opinions, and I understand that. I think Tyson Fury is the best heavyweight of all time because I think he can beat any heavyweight in any era because of his size, his skill set, right? His versatility, his mental strength when he's in that ring, right? I think he can beat any heavyweight in the history of the sport. Now, you want to argue his resume does not measure up to those guys? Of course not. Of course not. But once again, this is not the heavyweight division of the 70s and the 90s. It's just not. It's not the heavyweight division of the 70s and the 90s. It's not. So there's probably even if Fury, well, he's going to beat Usyk, in my opinion. I'm very confident he beats Usyk. That's just my opinion. So I'm going to say I don't dislike Usyk. I don't disrespect Usyk. I just think Fury's a much better fighter. So when he beats Usyk, right, his resume still won't be as good as Muhammad Ali's on paper, in most people's opinions, right? Still not going to be better than Lennox Lewis's on paper, in most people's opinions. Still not going to be better than Evander Holyfield's, in most people's opinions. Why? Because those guys fought, in my opinion, in an era that had better fighters overall. And that's not to say that fighters in this era aren't good. But when you look at Usyk, you look at Fury, Wilder, Joshua. But let's just look at right now. If you look at Usyk and Fury, I think they've proven that I think at least with Fury, I think he's proven he's separated himself, in my opinion, at least far above the other guys in the division. Where when you looked at a guy like Ali, there was always tough guys in the division where you could say, I don't know if Ali's going to beat Foreman. I don't know if he's going to beat Frazier. I don't know if he's going to beat Norton, right? Whereas now, even against Usyk, Fury's still the favorite, right? And I think Joshua's kind of on the way down. Wilder, I don't know if he's still holding out hope. I think now it's pretty clear, according to Eddie Hearn, that Wilder's not going to be next for Joshua. So they got to figure out something. They got to see what they're going to do next. They got to brainstorm and plan. Like, what are we going to do now? What's going on here? They got to figure it out. They got to figure it out. So it is what it is, man. All right, guys. Pretty much it. Like I said, I urge you to go check out that interview in the description box. It was a great interview. And yeah, shout out to Boxing King Media, man. And shout out to everybody, all the boxing fans out there in the world, man. Showtime's going away. I know we had to pay a lot of money for pay-per-views. So from a financial standpoint, this has not been a great year for boxing fans when it comes to having to dip into their pockets. But I do think this was a good year for boxing, especially if we're able to cap it off with Tyson Fury versus Oleksandr Usyk on December 23rd. Till next time, everybody stay safe. Peace to every living being on the world, in the planet, and I'll talk to you next time.